morning. Welcome. We're glad to see so many of you with us this morning. My name is Barbara Halsey, and I'm the Operations Director for Delegata Corporation. We're located in Sacramento and have the pleasure of working with a number of state agencies on organizational change management and business intelligence, on enterprise architecture, and in general business management consulting. So we're pleased that your selection today was to spend the first hour of your session with us. I want to give you just a little bit of background on our involvement with the Government Transformation Forum. Delegata serves as an advisory board member for the Government Transformation Forum. And as an advisory board member, for those of you who may not be aware, we come together with public sector partners, private businesses and consulting agencies, together with public sector partners to really plan and think about the kind of information that would be important to you in doing your daily work. And when we started working with PSP on the Government Transformation Forum, the one thing that they emphasized was that within government right now, there is an incredible movement to do process improvement and to partner process improvement with organizational change management. And they really focused, our public sector partners said there are really three areas of focus for the work that we're doing. We're focusing on business process improvement and re-engineering. We're focusing on IT process improvement and re-engineering. And then we're really looking at the organizational process improvement overall and change management around those organizational process improvements. It was really clear from the folks that we talked to when we sat down at the table together that there are some challenges associated with that. We know that resources can be constrained, so it's difficult to focus time and energy on process improvement. The other challenge that was mentioned was the idea that it's difficult often to decide what you're going to improve. Where do we start first? What's the first thing that we should tackle in terms of process improvement? And then there's an issue around maintaining momentum. So once you start, how far do you take it? How often do you refresh? So we wanted to make sure that we provided you with a panel of process improvement and organizational change management experts who could help you identify potentially some tools and some techniques that you could use when you go back to your offices tomorrow, or information that you could build on. So I want to bring your attention to a couple of things. We have a couple of takeaways for you. We have a takeaway handout that you can use to take notes on with some of the key points that our speakers will be talking about today. And for those of you who can't be without your telephones during the session, we have a handy-dandy kickstand for you to set your phone on so you can multitask while you're in the session as well. But we hope that you'll be taking notes and taking away some great information from our speakers today. The more we thought about the disciplines, process improvement and organizational change management, the more we came back to how closely related to the martial arts they were, right? Constant practice, continuous improvement, developing a discipline, developing a mindset within your organization around how change is handled and how processes are constantly worked and continuously improved. So we've invited Mr. Miyagi and Daniel Sun to join us today throughout our session, and you'll be hearing off and on from them as we go through and chat with our experts today. And with that, let's hear from them now.
Karate here. Karate here. Karate never here. You understand?
I think so.
I think so too, and I think that our panel members all understand that very well. Each of our speakers today really embodies the mind and heart commitment to practice that Mr. Miyagi was referring to. I want you, as they're doing their presentations, to think about what questions you might want to ask them, because at the end we will have time for a Q&A. So jot some notes. Think about how you might want to query them on an issue that you may be having at your workplace, and get ready for that Q&A as you listen to their presentations today. First, I want to introduce you to our panel members. Our first speaker today will be Marc Fechner. Marc is a change agent with over 25 years of sustainable quality management systems implementation and leadership. He's a quality management systems leader who focuses on kata and kaizen-based solutions that sustain continuous improvement. He's a guest speaker and consultant and lecturer on this topic and serves as a lecturer for the College of Business at California State University, Sacramento, where he teaches human resource organizational behavior and quality process improvement in healthcare in the MBA program. He also serves as a member of the Hewlett Packard Enterprise's Global Social and Environmental Responsibility Leadership Team. Our second speaker joining us today is Dan Ruiz. Dan is an experienced project and organizational change management leader who's led OCM and process improvement efforts in both the public and private sectors. He has a master's in public administration from Golden Gate University with an emphasis in organizational change management. His areas of practice have included corrections, energy efficiency, healthcare, and transportation, and baseball scouting operations. Really? That's amazing, huh? You never know when you're going to find an organizational change management guy, right? Roderick Steward is our third speaker with you today. And Stu is a retired U.S. Air Force leader. Thank you for your service. With 21 years of service under his belt with the U.S. Air Force, he also has 15 years of progressive management experience, 13 years of quality performance improvement experience in aviation and production and maintenance and large hospital operations. He's a data-driven, team-oriented cultural change agent who embraces continuous improvement to promote quality processes with the goal of increasing profits within a Lean Six Sigma environment. Stu currently serves as a senior Lean Six Sigma black belt for Sutter Health. So, without further delay, and with no pun intended, Marc, will you kick us off today?
All right.
Here's your...
So thank you for that introduction. It was kind of a long one. I just simply help my company, get things done more quickly. So good morning, and my name is Marc Fechner, and it's an honor to be here. And I'm going to touch on the topic of improvement at a high level, and I'm going to touch on concepts around Agile, Lean Six Sigma, and kata. And, but I'm going to do this, I'm going to probably do it in a way that's going to generate more questions than answers because I'm being time-boxed, which is a good thing. Trust me, you want me to be time-boxed. All right, so how many of you remember your first real job? I'm talking about that corporate gig where, we knew everything. We're showing up and, for me, I could even catch flies with chopsticks. So when, let's see. So when I first started my career, it was 1994, and I was on fire. Packard Bell Electronics had just relocated to Sacramento, and it was, they were the largest computer manufacturer in the U.S., fourth in the world. And I was a manufacturing engineer, fresh out of college. I was literally the Karate Kid. Now, I even had a smock, a white smock that looked like a karate gi. And the purpose of the karate gi, or this smock, was to reduce defects caused by a static discharge when you're working around electronics. And, excuse me, I'm recovering from a cold. I had a flu a couple days ago, or 2 weeks ago, so I've got this cough. Let me get some water.
Marc,
can you not hear me too? Okay, thank you. All right. Oops. So after about a week of working in corporate, I got my first improvement assignment. Some area in the production line. They weren't meeting production quotas. And they sent me in. So I put on my karate gi, went in, made some observations, did some time studies, saw some low-hanging fruit, identified some waste, and I knew exactly what solutions I needed to implement. So I went back to my desk back to my cube, and this is where the real work began. I created some gorgeous CAD drawings. I had recent ISO 9000 training, so I created some flow diagrams that looked wonderful. My work instructions were brilliant. A couple of days, I kind of stepped back and I looked at the work, and it was ready to roll. So the following morning, I go into the production meeting and I pitch my plan. Management buys it, and next thing you know, I'm out in front of production training, and we begin the pilot. And so this is where, when I said I was on fire, I mean, I was really on fire because I crashed and burned on my first improvement project. I had 11 people show me politely why my process improvement wasn't going to work. And it was, training was rocky. My flows didn't resemble reality. There was some employee resistance. And quite frankly, a lot of people in the line knew this process way better than I did. And so it was a humbling experience. And I learned a lot from that. And it was from that moment forward where I started to approach things differently. So I can hit this button here. So I think it's fairly obvious when you look at it from the level of experience that we have in a room, why it didn't work. I think, for one thing, knowledge alone is useless unless you can connect what you know with other pieces of knowledge. And so the way you go about this is, this comes from practice, this comes from experience, and it comes from collaborating. So let's take a look at it here. So I advance the next, okay, good. So, my first approach was based on traditional command and control, which isn't very agile, in the first place. And, one problem with process improvement is that it's often approached like fighting a fire. Once you finish fighting one fire, you're off to the other. And so lean thinking can sometimes fall into that trap, where you're just going around looking for waste, to reduce. And so process improvement, when done well, is just one iteration of continuous improvement. And continuous improvement needs to happen by the people who do the process. And second of all, I've acquired this knowledge and learned some tools, but yet I didn't really understand it connecting with the people, go on the floor. And experimenting and creating those experiences really mattered. Learned that real quick. So third, we know that healthy organizations care about people, and when you take care of your people, they'll take care of your customers. So Packard Bell Electronics, 6 years later, shut their doors. And it was just there's culture is very important, when you, provide tools and methodology in your company. So, all three of these areas are people, whoops. So all three of these areas are people and method-centric, and they connect to these three extremely valuable improvement movements. Agile, Lean Six Sigma, and Kata. And there's not enough time really to go through these in depth. But first, I want to talk about Agile. So Agile in its purest form is just simply a mindset around values and principles. It's a tool. So the four values focus on helping others, helping customers get value sooner, and collaborating and responding to change. Its highest priority is to satisfy customers through short iterations and delivering value sooner. Now, I'm not going to go into depth on this. Dan is our expert on Agile, so he'll cover that in a second. So secondly, Lean Six Sigma. This simply is just a suite of tools. Lean is used to reduce waste, and Six Sigma is used to reduce errors or defects. And we all have them in every industry. And when you combine Lean and Six Sigma, the idea is to get kind of a faster, better, cheaper, more quickly. And so they are important to work together. And they really are derived, the combination of this in a lean thinking philosophy. And I'm not going to cover that, but Stu's going to be covering that a little bit deeper. So Kata. So this is my favorite. So how many of you are familiar with this? Because this is kind of a newer concept that's being introduced in the US. So this is my favorite. Now, Kata, the way I look at it is this is a movement towards mastery. And it's a daily routine you practice to learn a skill and a mindset until it becomes second nature. And, we've all done this, learning to ride a bike, drive a car. And in lean kata, there's two methods. There's an improvement kata and a coaching kata, and I am running out of time here, so I'm not going to go into that deeper, but we will have a chance to talk about this a little bit more. So let me move here. So what is your movement towards improvement? When you think about it, Agile, it's a mindset. You want to grow your tools, and there are over 1,000 quality tools out there. And so you really want to try to find quality tools that matter to your organization, learn them, master them, teach them, and then practice them every day. And in kata, find your movement towards mastering, whatever skill it is you want to master. So in closing, to all you Mr. Miyagi's here today, when you leave this conference and go back to your home or your office, waxing the car, painting the fence, sanding the floor, or making a millennial do it, think about this. When it comes to change management, communication is vital, but it's not engagement. You have to think about the culture or how things get done around here. That's because to improve is to change, and to pursue perfection is to change often. And in order to change often, you have to find the right tools, approach, and method, and make mastering and teaching that your habit. Thank you.
Thanks, Marc. Thanks for setting the stage for us and emphasizing the importance of knowledge and experience grounded in the right approach and fully engaging with those who will be responsible for implementing the change. Dan, it's your turn to school us on the importance of organizational change management in an Agile environment.
Hi, everybody. I'm Dan Ruiz. Can you hear me? Good, good. So I'm kind of like Mr. Miyagi. I'm an aging infrastructure, as you can tell. So is he. But there's more than that. Pat, who is the original actor, went to the same high school as me a few years earlier, but not too many. So I do relate to the gentleman, and I actually followed his career. So I want to set the stage right. I am not a certified Scrum Master. I've worked in a lot of Agile projects. I'm an OCM guy. I've got a certification in ProSci, worked in Cotter, some of the other methodologies. I'm an OCM guy who's worked in an Agile environment. And that's kind of what I'm going to talk about today. So what I want to do to start out is I want to do, if you're an OCM, how many people in here are OCM people? Have you got a certification? There's one, here, hand me that there. This one? No, thank you. We got some OCM people here. Here, you get the.
You throw it. I say throw it from here.
Go ahead and get that.
We're the OCM folks.
Not you. So, how many people are certified Scrum Masters? Is there anybody that's in there? There's a couple there, a couple there. How many have worked in an Agile project? We got some there, so. How many have worked in Waterfall projects? Yeah, okay, see, there you go. All right, so the point I'm trying to make in the stakeholder analysis is that I know I'm behind, but I'm doing that on purpose. I'll skip through the slides. The point I'm trying to make is that Waterfall's been around a long time, and what it does is it gets institutionalized. So you'll have a lot of standards and methods, things you have to follow. You can see that in the state. You go to the Leadership Academy and all these other places where you have your standards, you'll see that. You're starting to see that now, that institutionalization in the Agile side. If you go look at the State of California IT department, just in December, published an Agile guide. Has anybody seen that or not? You can go to their website and you can get it. But in there, they talk about the same thing that was said before, that Agile is an umbrella. It covers a bunch of other techniques, but I'm telling you, it's becoming institutionalized. And you'll see that its centering seems to be on IT development, but you can use it for business process improvement, that it's not IT related. And the technique that most people use is the Scrum methodology, which I'm going to talk a little bit about, but not much because there's not enough time. So I would suggest that you go out and take a look at the State of California's practices or guides on it. They are, by the way, also, they just issued an RFI, I think it was, in early February to actually pre-qualify up to 30 vendors who have Agile experience. I did a quick scan of what they were saying, and it looks like OCM's a little light. So let me go on to the process. Okay, so I'm going to have to walk. I'm not going to use a mic right now. So you have your traditional waterfall process, as you see here. Stakeholder involvement in that is critical up at the requirements development, and traditionally when you do user acceptance testing, those are the two key pieces in a waterfall area where you want to make sure your stakeholders are properly involved. There is a communications plan that structures through this that's pretty standard. When you get into an Agile development process, basically it's not a big bang process, it's a chunk type process. So what you do is you analyze everything that you're going to do. You do analysis in terms of risk, value improvement, that sort of thing, cost. And what you do is you develop a release strategy because you want to try and add value to your customer set early on. So what you do is you develop releases. So there's an OCM life cycle, and I'm not going to cover that in great depth. I'm a ProSci guy, so I use ADCAR. But those cycles occur for each individual release. Then when you get down into the release, they have things called sprints, which is the next level of iteration, where you might say, I'm going to do something, and let me go back to my thing and push the slides. Hang on. Got it. Okay. So I'm going to use one. This is from a public website. It's PG&E. So what they want to do is improve their customer relationship process. They called it channel of choice as an example. So what they looked at is, what am I going to improve? Rather than a waterfall, I'm going to deliver value to the customers in a shorter time. So they did releases of bill-related, service arrangements, and then some other stuff. If you go into service arrangements as an example, can you hear me better that way? If you go to service arrangements as an example, those are things like, oh, I want to be able to, I'm moving into PG&E's territory. I want to start my service. I'm leaving. I want to stop my service. I'm moving from one location to another. I want to be able to change where I locate, but I still have PG&E service. That's a service arrangements example. So you can see what they did is they brought everybody together. All the stakeholders that were involved. We want to improve our customer relations. They did surveys internally and externally to figure out what's the best way, the things that they wanted to do. They developed a release strategy, and they proceeded to deliver that based on release. That's, in essence, what Agile is about. So let's go to the next slide. I probably skipped myself. So what I'm showing here in this slide is what I just described. You develop a product vision, you develop releases, and then what you do is you go through individual sprints and daily scrums. And I'll talk about what that means for you as an OCM practitioner. I really haven't gotten into kata yet, the methodology that you use, other than a high level. But what I'm going to tell you is basically your kata, your OCM methodologies are not really that much different than a waterfall. The difference is there's more work for an OCM practitioner because you got to do the same iterations over and over again for the releases, for the scrums, and the sprints. It's a tiered process that you have to apply OCM to, and you got to think of all three layers as you're delivering. There's no sound. What I was trying to make a point in this slide while we had this video in here is it's...
Would slice water be easier?
Yeah, it's iterations. Basically, you're going to do the same thing over and over again. You're using your standard OCM processes, but in a more finite effort.
Not yet.
Okay. So the way you start out, a release-based one, And I just wanted to use this slide. How am I doing for time, by the way? I'm okay?
We're a little over.
Okay. A release-based strategy is you have a kickoff process, you develop your overarching plan, you do a stakeholder analysis, you develop your initial communications plan, all the things you've done before. But then, as I said, you've got to concentrate on, like if I'm going to do service arrangements, I'm going to look at starting service. Who are all the stakeholders for starting a service? What am I going to do to get them engaged in the iterations of developing the changes that they need? How am I going to communicate to them? It's the traditional OCM activity, but it's chunked down into a more finite effort. But you also got to keep in mind you've got an overall project. So you're still having to deliver the standard OCM communications to the whole organization. Hey, we're making progress. We're done with these sprints. We're doing service arrangements now. We're close to getting done. You're doing multiple level OCM activity, which you didn't necessarily have. You kind of have to do that in Waterfall, but not exactly the same way. So the lessons learned, we'll just skip to this and we'll finish out. The lessons learned is it's a three-tiered effort, a multiple-tiered effort. I found that you got to communicate early and often. That's a key to that. And training is critical. I didn't really have time to talk about that. But when you're doing these individual iterations, you're getting the key stakeholders involved in the training process as you go, so that when you're done with a release and you have a larger group that's involved in, let's say, service arrangements, you want to train them, you know it's going to be right because you've had key stakeholders through the entire development process. So that training is going to be good, and you know how you're going to communicate that. Excuse me. That's basically what I wanted to describe. It's a multiple-tier process. It's more work for an OCM practitioner, but it generally produces a better product if you do it right. That's what I've got.
Thanks, Dan.
Yeah. Sorry about running over.
You're good. You're good. Lots to talk about. Lots to talk about.
I get enthused about this.